I'm really sorry I'm not going to be at school today. My hope is that you're going to take this class time and make it productive and do your best to make the best of the fact that I'm not there. You'll probably actually have a really good class anyway. I'm going to ask you to watch the rest of this movie, and I'm also going to ask you to follow along in your book To Kill a Mockingbird and take notes as I go through. Hopefully this will be a short video, but I just want to talk you through chapter 22. I want to give you some of my thoughts, and I'd like you to take a few notes as you get down through it. I know you've read a little bit past that. After the class is done watching this video, I'm going to probably at the end of this video introduce the writing assignment, and then I'd like you to spend the rest of the class period working on the writing assignment. It's really important to me, out of respect for me, I'd like you to be very respectful to Mr. Reisner, and I would also like you to make productive use of class time today. Don't put things off till this weekend. I'd like you to enjoy the weekend instead. So we're going to begin on the front page of chapter 22, but I want you to remember how chapter 21 ended. The court case is over, Tom Robinson has been found guilty, and Atticus is just walking out of the courtroom. When he does that, the black people in the balcony all stand out of respect and reverence and honor for him. The beginning of chapter 22 is the end of one of many of our plot lines. It's the end of Jim's plot line. I told you early on that one aspect of this book is that Jim was going to grow into an adult. He does that right here on this page. You can see it. One thing that happens is lost innocence. Jim starts to cry. He's crying because he can see the injustice in the world. He keeps saying it to Atticus, it ain't right. When Jim says it ain't right, Harper Lee is telling us this is an unjust world that these people live in. And now that Jim has matured to the point that he gets that, that's the end of his development, except for one other thing. He sort of vows, when I am grown, and when he says that on these opening pages, it lets us know what his future will be like. It's not really going to say it in the book, but we can all know. Jim is going to grow up to be like Atticus, and he's going to continue the fight that Atticus was fighting throughout this whole book. The themes here are lost innocence, and also the cruelty and immorality of Southern white society. It's important that you understand that those are the things that Harper Lee is trying to teach us. If this is a didactic novel, and I think that it is, those are the lessons that she's teaching us about humanity. Atticus is essentially going to say that what happened in the courtroom, the incredible injustice, the finding an innocent man guilty, he's going to say that it's just as much Macomb County as the missionary teas. In other words, Atticus is telling his children, this is who we are as a Southern society. It's a really awful, pessimistic thing that he has to say. But Atticus is exhausted. You can see that in sort of the descriptions of him. So he's going to go off to bed. But what Harper Lee's done here is she's taught us about the loss of innocence. It says, I don't know, but they did it. They've done it before, and they did it tonight, and they'll do it again, and when they do it, it seems only the children weep. Atticus tells his children that, and then he says goodnight. Now Atticus knows that only children are innocent, and Dolphus Raymond and Atticus are kind of saying the same thing. When children in white Southern society grow up, their hearts get hardened to this. And that's one of the bitter, ugly things that this book is teaching us about racism. If we read Huckleberry Finn together in a couple of years, one of the things Mark Twain is saying about Southern white society is that everybody is no damn good. But what Harper Lee is teaching us about human nature is more complicated than that. Sure, Bob Ewell is no damn good. In fact, he's a good definition of evil. But I want you to notice what other people in the town do for Atticus. And I want you to notice that not everybody in the town is really happy that Tom Robinson is being lynched. The next morning, when Atticus is having breakfast, Calpurnia makes him fried chicken. That's not something that poor people in 1935 had for breakfast. Atticus says something like, "I don't even think they have fried chicken at the White House." She also brings him some rolls that some neighbor brought, and then she brings him back into the kitchen and shows them that many people have been bringing them food: salt pork, tomatoes, beans, scuppernogs, oh my God, they're the most delicious grapes in the world. Chile's got a million kinds of grapes, but they don't have grapes that are as delicious to eat as scuppernogs. His neighbors are all doing all these nice things for him, but I noticed something about the neighbors who are bringing them food. They're leaving it on the back steps. And that lets me know that the neighbors that are bringing him all this food are the black people that live in their community. In 1935 in Monroeville, Alabama, white folks would have left food at the front door, and the black people left their food at the back door. But Calpurnia even tells him they appreciate what you did. And you have to remember that they're giving to Atticus when these people are very poor, right in the middle of the Great Depression. Atticus starts to cry, and he says, "Tell them I'm very grateful. Tell them they must never do this again because times are too hard." Atticus really does appreciate how much they're sacrificing for him. At the beginning of this video, I reminded you that Jim's grown up. He's becoming a man. One symbol of that appears is when Jim and Dill and Scout go and get cakes from Miss Maudie Atkinson. Normally, she would make 3 little cakes, one for each of them. But when they go and visit Miss Maudie Atkinson this time, there are only 2 little cakes and 1 big one. And of course, Scout and Dill each get one of the little cakes, but Jim gets a cut off of the big cake. This is kind of like when you were a kid and you used to sit at the kids' table whenever there was a fancy meal, and then one day your family moves you up to the adult table. I'm actually hoping that you're all there by now. Ultimately, what Harper Lee is teaching us about human nature is complex. I mean, we have to remember that Atticus Finch, Tom Robinson, and Bob Ewell are all part of the human race. So when we look at all of these people and everybody else in Macomb County, what is it that Harper Lee is teaching us about what it means to be a human being? Miss Maudie tries to explain this to Jim. She talks about Atticus Finch with such reverence. She says, and this is probably the most important thing Miss Maudie Atkinson is going to say in this book, is that I simply want to tell you, Jim, that there are some men in this world who were born to do our unpleasant jobs for us. Your father's one of them. I don't think Jim understands the depth of what she is saying here. Maudie Atkinson reminds Jim that other people in the town didn't want Tom Robinson to be convicted. The judge who assigned Atticus to the trial instead of the local know-nothing, easy paid defender. The other people in the community who really were on Atticus's side. Now, it's true that in this community there are more people like the jury than there are people like Atticus. But Miss Maudie Atkinson is making Jim realize that not everybody is like that. And most or many of the people in this community have seen the evil that just happened there, and they're ashamed and disgusted. Miss Maudie tells Jim, she says, "You think about that," Miss Maudie was saying. "It was no accident. I was sitting there on the porch last night waiting. I waited and waited to see you come down from the sidewalk, and as I waited, I thought, Atticus Finch won't win. He can't win. But he's the only man in these parts who can keep a jury out so long in a case like that. And I thought to myself, well, we're making a step. It's just a baby step, but it's a step." After she says that, Jim says, Soon as I get grown, and then I can tell what the rest of his life is going to be like. The book's not going to say it, but he's going to grow up and be just like his father, and he's going to carry this fight even further. So, at the end of chapter 22, we've actually concluded a lot of things. Several plot lines are done. The courtroom drama, well, that part of the novel is over. Jim's maturation, that plot line is also over. Now we're going to move into two new plot lines. One has to do with the original plot line at the beginning of the book, Boo Radley. He's going to make an appearance at the end of this book. The other new plot line shows up in the very last sentence of chapter 22. Aunt Alexandria tries her best to stop the children from hearing it, but they hear it anyway. Miss Stephanie, it says with pleasure, tells the children that this morning Bob Ewell stopped Atticus on the post office corner, spat in his face, and told him he'd get him if it took him the rest of his life. Well, this is foreshadowing, and it's also our new conflict. You can't say something like that in a book and have it not appear, in the last few pages of the book. We're going to see Bob Ewell some more, and he's going to be trouble. That's really all I need to say about this part of the book. I want you to go ahead and move on now to the writing assignment. I'm going to explain a few things to you about what I want you to get done today, but I'm really hoping that you're productive in class today so that you have very little homework over the weekend. The first thing you'll want to do, of course, is to click on the link for the writing assignment on today's lesson plan in haiku. Make a copy of the assignment for yourself, and then we'll go over the directions together. I'm asking you to write less than 300 words, although you should be pretty close to 300 words when you're done. I'm also asking you to write this in 3 paragraphs, but I have some really good advice for you. A smart way to do this would be to answer the whole question in the first paragraph. Try to write a thorough answer to the question, and then use paragraphs 2 and 3 to give evidence for the things that you say in your first paragraph. The question says, in less than 300 words, citing evidence from chapters 19, 20, 21, and 22 of To Kill a Mockingbird, discuss or explain what the trial of Tom Robinson, the verdict, and the variety of the ways people of Maycomb treat Atticus after the trial teaches the reader about human nature. This isn't an easy question to answer because there's a variety of reactions to what happens in the trial. For example, Bob Ewell spits on Atticus, whereas other people in the community give him food and support him and just send kind words and wishes. So your answer is going to be complex. You want to describe what Harper Lee is trying to teach us about all of humanity. And that means you have to describe both the good and the bad and have some conclusions of your own about what that means. A really good source for all of you is Mr. Reisner. He's a brilliant writer and he understands this book at a very complicated level, and I'm sure he can answer all of your questions and also give you advice about how to word and structure your essays. I'm really going to encourage you to use him as a resource. It's very important to me, I said this at the beginning and I'm going to say it again, please make real productive use of your class time today. Do it as a favor to me. I will see you on Monday, and when I see you on Monday, I expect you to read one more chapter, chapter 25, and I expect these papers to be about 85% done. That means I can give you half an hour in class to work on it, and you should be able to complete your paper by the end of class on Monday. All right. Good luck to you all. Enjoy your day without me. Try not to miss me too much.